Thanksgiving. All right, we all set technologically? Excellent. All right, so I see we have all 7 of us here today. It's very exciting. So given that, I will call to order the meeting of the Airport Commission at 4:02 p.m. And if the remote commissioner could please acknowledge their presence for the record.
Bernogli, Franuski.
Robin Gillian.
Chip Mason.
Excellent, thank you. And we're going to move on to item 2, which is the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Helen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any discussion or proposed changes to the agenda?
We can alternate today. We can alternate.
All right, go ahead, Brandon. Yes.
I'd like to move, I believe, the commissioner item to be with the other sound insulation and noise complaint items if possible.
Sure. So okay, so I would then propose
Item 9 to be before item 8 is my proposal.
all right, so we have that on the floor. Any other proposed amendments to the agenda? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda as proposed to be amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have our amended agenda. We now move on to item 3, which is public forum. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak today? None. All right, we'll close down public forum. We'll move on to item 4, which is the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the contents of the consent agenda as presented? Moved by Jeff, second by Helen. Nick, any discussion on contents?
Just a few things. One big increase over last year, so we're 10% on the employments this particular month, July over July of 2022, which is great news. We're still not quite back up to the 2019 numbers. But if you look at our fiscal year to date, which is closer to the bottom and also in the chart there on page 2, we're getting pretty close. Our calendar year to date through July is 370,000 employments, and prior years, prior to the pandemic, we're just over that. We're only 3,000 above that. So we're doing really well from calendar year to date to calendar year to date 2019, which was our highest year in 10 years that particular year. And I'll also report that this past Monday was the highest number or the most passengers outbound that's TSA security processed at just over 2,700 outbound passengers alone. So we just hit that number. September always is a little bit lower of a month. Airline schedule slightly, you can always see the dip in September, even on our employment numbers. When you look at it on an annual basis. So we're going to see that again this year, but it's going to be consistent with 2019 scheduled air carriers. Then we're going to see the leaf peepers and the October numbers come right back up. So numbers are looking really good for this year.
All right, commissioners, any questions for Nick on the contents of the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the contents of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5, section 5, action items. We start with 5.1, a GSA lease amendment. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend to the City Council the approval of the lease agreement amendment with the U.S. General Services Administration.
Move it.
So moved by Helen. Second by Jeff. Discussion to be led by Nick.
Sure. So this is a relatively simple lease amendment. It is a change from an amendment that you've seen in the past. As the memo states, we have not signed that amendment because circumstances have changed. The prior amendment that you looked at and recommended was to relocate TSA, which is managed by GSA, the General Services Administration, to an alternate office location. Because of Project Next and our terminal renovations project, and working with the Transportation Security Administration, we found alternate solutions for their permanent relocation. Therefore, we're not moving forward with the amendment that you've seen in the past, but we are moving forward with this particular amendment number 2. This does not take into account the new office space that we're designing. You're gonna see an amendment number 3 when we finish designing their new offices. This is merely to remove old office space that they had. That's why you see a nominal $30,000 decrease in revenue to the airport, but that revenue in the associated square footage will be increased with amendment number 3. We have our architect engineer teams on that right now. Not much more to share on that, except that this particular amendment is just the decreased number for now.
Larry, did you have anything? You look like you're about to say something, so I'm not sure. Have a chance to add it.
Don't say it. I know what he's thinking.
There's 3 letters there I don't like.
You know, in all honesty, sometimes it can be challenging to work through multiple government agencies that are managed by an agency that's not here every single day, knowing the backbone of the airport. So there were some challenging pieces, but I think we came to a great solution with both TSA and GSA.
Is that new? The GSA being part of this? I don't recall that.
Somewhat. They're definitely, GSA is more proactively looking at all government leases. So we went through the same scenario with the National Weather Service, where we had a direct lease originally with National Weather Service or National Organic Atmosphere. And GSA came in and they were the leasing agency from now on. That's what we signed our new deal with. GSA's always been a part of TSA's real estate transactions. But so has TSA real estate office. They have a separate office for real estate. So you can start seeing that it gets multiple paths to this conversation. But overall, it's a great solution, great new office space, permanent space that is out of the way of all future projects. And truly appropriate for the TSA agency, and this is for their leadership team to be at this airport. I will share too that we did try to bid on the overall TSA office spaces, because they are currently at the Kimball Avenue site. There's a office building on Kimball Avenue. TSA for the state of Vermont is currently in that location. We did bid on that to relocate them to the airport here. However, the bids we were not select. Well, we actually never bid on it because the bid timeline was too short, and it was clear that there was a direction that they wanted to go in. However, we're able to capture more office space with this lease that we're working on.
All right, commissioners, questions for Nick? Nick, just one from me. So in the compression of the space from roughly 2,900 to 2,200, what's the expected duration of that before they expand back up again?
It's going to be about a year and a half. Yep.
All right, commissioners, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5.1 carries. Move on to item 5.2. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend to the city council the approval of an easement to the Champlain Water District.
So moved.
Moved by Helen and second by Jeff. Discussion is Nick or Larry. Okay, all right.
Basically, this is on National Guard Drive, down below the airport on the other side of the Air Force VTAG. There's a road they need to put in a structure for their water system. And it's on our property, so we're just basically giving an easement for access to maintain and utilize, so for their system. So it's very simple.
All right, commissioners, any questions for Larry? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi,
Any opposed? That carries, and we move on to item 5.3. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Finance the approval of a vehicle lease purchased through New Car Ford.
no moved.
So moved by Helen, second by Jeff. And I'm not sure who's leading this one.
Of course, you know Dave Carmen, Deputy Director of Aviation Operations, also here with us. I believe you've all met him as Andrew Gepner. Andrew has recently been promoted and is our new airfield manager, which manages both the airfield and the equipment that we have out there under Dave's leadership. So I'll hand it off to you.
Excellent. So this vehicle is a replacement vehicle for actually one of the older pieces of equipment, older vehicles we have, 2011 F-350, but this right size is the type of vehicle that we need for what it's going to be doing on the airfield, which is a lot of hauling trailers, as well as carrying the sorting format, which is the solid de-ice we use for de-icing the runways. Basically, what this is we're trading in two vehicles. For this, we had trade-in credit of $23,000 for both of those vehicles to bring the total price to $55,152.90. And one of the vehicles that are being traded in are going to be replaced by a electric vehicle.
So this new big one couldn't be electric, they don't make them. I mean, I know.
Not on that side.
Not on that side.
Right.
Not in that size and the quantity of hours that we're gonna be needing to use it for, especially with snow plowing.
Revved up.
But the exciting news, and I desperately was trying to coordinate this so that we could present it all together, at the timing on the purchase of this particular Ford vehicle was pretty instrumental to make sure that we have it on site prior to the winter time. We are purchasing 3 new electric vehicles. 3 electric vehicles that the airport will for the first time ever be in those 3 electric vehicles. So these will be 2 new trucks and an SUV for daily operations of the airport. And that's where we're starting to make our aggressive transformation into an electric fleet as much as we possibly can.
Mhm.
I wasn't able to get it into this.
Yeah, okay, but we learned that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, commissioners, any questions for Dave? Go ahead, Greg.
Nick, with this aggressive transformation into an electric fleet, I imagine that we have a number of charging stations that are set up to allow that and encourage that transformation.
No,
Okay,
so we have 12 electric charging, well, probably 14 electric charging stations because we have a couple of residual ones in the parking garage, right? And those are for our customers, and we're also looking at expanding the number of units out there as well, or at least upgrading them. However, when these new electric vehicles come into the fleet, we need to make sure we have charging stations at the appropriate stations that these vehicles are going to be assigned to. If, for example, the airfield shop and mainly the terminal, and our new snow removal equipment building that we're designing right now. So as we purchase these, we're working with Burlington Electric Department and Green Mountain Power to install additional chargers specific for our fleet.
I'm sorry, finish.
well, I just had a quick follow-up. And the source of that electricity that's going to be used to power those new vehicles, I know that you've talked about the sort of the number of different diverse systems that we're trying to sort of plug into. How are those batteries going to be charged?
So we're using Green Mountain Power and Burlington Electric Department. We have both utility companies at the field here. BED is mostly responsible for terminal area or the geographic area. JMP is everything else. Both of those companies are now 100% renewable energy sourced. So we're using that electricity, and as we design our new buildings, like the terminal project or our new snow removal maintenance building, we're looking at making sure that sustainable items are added to power as much as we possibly can, whether that's solar or other means. But for now, those sources are from 100%.
I just had at the city council meeting last night, the city of South Burlington agreed to make a proposal for, there's a federal and state program for, I think it's municipalities, but I would be curious if it included airports to fund charging stations. And we've applied for 4 at our Public Works and 4 at I can't remember where.
For the fleet.
For our fleet, yeah. And I'm just curious if you were aware. So I can't remember the name of the, but I will send it to you. I don't know if it's available for airports,
Yeah.
but it's worth looking into. They had a fair amount
Absolutely.
of money. We were going for $500,000 or something.
Wow.
It's
And that's why we are working with our utility companies too, because there's other offers, there's rebates, and there's also offers associated with adding charging stations.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard of this one.
well, maybe the city of Burlington can
Or the city could
likewise,
help.
because
Yeah.
they are a municipality, but
Absolutely. Sounds like a great
Curious.
job for a director of planning engineering and sustainability.
I will take that. I'll make a note.
okay, I will send you the
Green
I
chart.
like that, thank you.
organization.
And just related to what Helen mentioned, I think under the new federal IRA Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, I think there's tax credits up to $6,000 for going from a gas-powered vehicle to an electric.
Yeah, excellent. And that was where we're working with BED, especially BED. Although both companies do offer those the guidance to make sure that we're following, not to get some of those credits or rebates. It's exciting though, obviously that's not about the F-550, but it's making a huge step for us to get to an electric fleet as quickly as we can. And these aren't just cars that are gonna be sitting. 2 of these vehicles are gonna be, right now, we're looking at the Ford Lightnings because they're on a state bid right now. Both of them, one is gonna be assigned to the airfield associated with, to the terminal, sorry, Andrew. Which is gonna be their only daily vehicle for everything that they do for all of our facilities maintenance. Not just the terminal, but also all of our other buildings. And the other one is assigned to Dave and Stacy, which is our operations department. So that will be the primary operations vehicle that daily checks out there. So that I'm very excited about it.
We should see savings in fuel too.
I think so. Absolutely.
I just went to another meeting, the South Burlington, and we're celebrating a year of using 4 electric buses.
That's amazing.
That within a year traveled 29,000 miles, and they saved, 9 tons of carbon. I mean, so those are things that if you're looking for metrics to share with the public in terms of reaching goals, you really can track it. And it's very impressive.
Certainly is.
So these guys are driving around all day long. They probably put on a lot of miles.
That's what I'm, especially operation.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of
So-
miles.
All right, commissioners, any further discussion on this topic? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, that brings to close 5.3. We move on to item 6, which is just the construction update from Larry.
Okay, First, I'd like to say, I think if everybody's read the report, you'll notice that there's a lot of projects that are going through closeout. That means that the grant is approaching 4 years old. In fact, we have one grant that approaches 4 years old this month, and the rest will start next year. A few will be next year. So it's become a priority for me to get these things closed out so we can get the final reimbursement for the 10% we don't get till we get these closed out. And I can clean up this list and slim this report down. Secondly, I think I provided photos, information, and the report is, if you have any questions, I can answer any questions. The exciting part is we are scheduled next week to meet with the FAA to review our 5-year CIP with them, which is concentrated really on the next year's funding, but also looking out over the 4 years beyond that. Next year, we are planning on applying for projects with a value of $75 million, which is huge, which is the runway 1533 rehabilitation, the next project, the north relocation of the North Concourse, and the SRE building, which is all funded, all types of funding is being used, entitlement, discretionary, congressionally directed spending, and bipartisan infrastructure bill money. So the money's already been scheduled for that, but we will be focusing on those 3 projects for grant applications next year. And I provided, like I said, I provided photos. You'll see Taxiway Alpha is moving along in great shape, on schedule, should be done by the end of the month or close to it. The South Apron, as you can see, the stormwater infrastructure is going in, the mass excavation is going on, which means that they put the sub base on and end up, eventually paving it. Pavement on that South Apron is dependent on how we're doing. Of course, we're getting summer now after not having summer. So hopefully that continues into, late fall and we can get pavement done this year, but that'll all depend on the weather. So are there any questions about anything here? I guess my priority now is come to the top of the pile is to get these projects closed out because they're approaching 3 and 4 years old and we're done. So.
Yeah, nice to shrink the size of your report.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I mean, we love the work you're doing, but like half of these are in closeout. So.
Right, and I could remove them if they're not closed. So that's the goal is to get these things closed out because we want to clean everything up with the FAA. So Nick, did I miss anything?
No.
All right, commissioners, any comments or questions for Larry? All right, thank you, Larry. We move on to item 7. And community connection 7.1 noise data from Anna.
So I reported from on the noise comments through the 18th. I was out this past 2 weeks, so I can follow up with with an updated graph for those items for the comments by town and the comments by aircraft. Happy to do that. To update those. We also added, it's under 2, the parcel map as well. I think we added last month, but they've updated it a little bit so you can see the so it's parceled out from the 65 to 66 DNL individually all the way through 75 to 76. So it's a little bit more detailed. That's under that second item there. Those are the only things I really wanted to point out for this month. If you have any questions.
Yeah, so on that, what's the difference between like the dots and the line?
Refer to Nick.
So the lines are the actual contour or average DNL, right? So
They're
orange line is the 75, and then all the way on the outer edge, green line is the 65. The dots are specific parcels, so houses. And each dot is color coded to see within that 1 decibel level or average decibel level where they're located. So when you go to the outside, you see more of a darker blue, which is clearly in the 65 to 66 range.
Okay.
Each one of these houses, we dive even further to to the 10th of a decimal point on which average decibel level they're in, and that's what determines their eligibility in the sound mitigation program. And then, of course, as you get closer, you see the orange to red dots, which are in the higher levels.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Really, this map is, I mean, you can run maps with those contour lines with however many you want to, but the FAA requires these 3 particular lines.
Commissioners, any questions for Hannah?
No.
All right, then 7.2, the residential sound installation program update.
Okay, I think I reported last month that we had an issue with a window supplier for phases 1 and 2, which was initially the pilot in the second phase of these projects. That's been resolved. We're finishing up the Buy American. We did sign the contract with the contractor for the modification to go to a different supplier, and we will be starting on the phase 1 and phase 2 homes on September 25th, with the goal of being finished by the end of the year for those homes. We did receive the grant for phase 3, which includes the 52 homes that were designed under the phase 2 grant. So that was about $5 million we received for construction. So we bid that, and we're moving through the contractor Buy American phase and all that kind of stuff right now. Also in phase 3, also what was included in there was the money to reach out to the next 50 homes and start designing those next 50. So the projects that we have designed and have funding for right now under phase 1 and phase 2 will start September 25th. Late due to the window manufacturer. Phase 3 construction, which was designed in phase 2, will start in the spring next year of the 52 homes. And we, over this winter, will start engaging with the next 50 or so homes. You know, it'll be more than that. We're identifying a lot more than that because people don't always want it done. So, and about 50% of those homes are actually in Winooski. So that's an update.
And that prepares us, of course, for next year, as this grant that we just received 2 weeks ago, as we design those houses, we're going to be prepared to apply for another $5 million grant by May of next year, to build those houses and design the next 50
So
houses.
change my 75 million to 80 million.
Right.
There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, the plus 5 million.
Have you let the people know, 'cause I guess there's 12 that are gonna get their windows pretty soon?
Yeah.
Have they been notified about the snafu?
The delay.
Yeah,
Each and every one of them, our consultant and ourselves are reaching
Okay.
out directly to them, because it is an unfortunate.
well, it's hard to wait, you
Yeah.
know, it's been many years and then,
It's been many years, and it's of course, we've been working with these particular homeowners for 12 months at least, to design it, and of course, wait for the funding to build it. So uncontrolled circumstances of the bankruptcy of this window manufacturer, and thankfully the FAA was on board with approving this next company so that we can get these purchased right away. But all of them are aware, and all of them are very eager and very anxious. Of course, it's September too, so we need to consider that timing to put this in. And we're working diligently with these first round of houses and of course the next.
thank you.
All right, Brent?
Yeah, thank you. I'm curious for the Winooski homes that you're planning, if you're coordinating with city staff. We have a new housing director that you met earlier this summer, and others for outreach, any landlord supporter assistance with contact information, anything along those lines. I know we might be a little far out, but I'm not sure if you've already gotten that far.
We can make that happen. probably at that time to start reaching out to that, because we have to sign the contract for this next phase, but that'll be happening over the next several months, so we can do that.
Right, so like I said, we just got the grant for this next phase, just a few weeks ago. We have not signed the contract with Jones Paint Group, we're just finalizing that now, so we can execute it. And then absolutely would be very happy to coordinate with city staff, same with South Burlington, we do that as well.
Great, yeah, that would be appreciated. Thank you. And a follow-up question. So this, the sound insulation phasing is based off of the 2019 noise exposure map. I'm curious if that will change at all, if the contour lines are adjusted with an updated noise exposure map.
Great question. Will the contour lines change? I don't know. Until the radar information and the schedule that we shared all comes to fruition, which will be later next year. If the contours change, however, the same houses, unless for some reason the 65 DNL came dramatically closer to the airport, which I am not saying it will be. The same houses are next in line for the sound insulation program, so that those houses would not change. And if they're already in a grant, we would not be changing those houses either way, whether it's designed construction or application for the following year to construct the ones that we just designed. So nothing would change with the homeowners and the property owners and the tenants that we're working with today. The only thing that would change as part of the noise contour map would be the very outer edges of eligibility. That might change. But again, it's unknown at this time.
Right, and obviously, yes, it is unknown, and it's not too far of a stretch to do the thought exercise of if those change, how would that impact the sound insulation efforts? I feel like that's an easy question for me to get at City Council.
As far as what product we're putting into a house and
in terms of the number of houses that might receive sound insulation if the contour lines are expanded, or there's also the possibility they could be adjusted inward as opposed to expanded outward. So there's a number of possibilities. They don't change, they expand outward, or they move inward. In which case, in what ways, if any, might that change the sound insulation phasing and plans?
Really not at all. Because it's just the 65 or the properties that are closest to the 65 that would change. And we are years away from approaching those homeowners. So it really wouldn't change at all. It might change more dramatically for South Burlington, depending on where the contour line changes on the east and west side of the airport versus Winooski, because that contour line does go further into Winooski. But again, the property owners that we're working with today, regardless of where they are in the process, we continue to work with. And the next houses, unless they're outside of the 65 because of the changed map, would still be next in the process.
Okay, thanks.
And while we're talking about noise exposure map, well, we did also link the noise exposure map schedule. This will be our updated 2024 existing conditions noise exposure map, as well as a 5-year future forecast. Both maps are required by the FAA. You need this map to apply for all of these grant fundings that we're talking about today. So this is an update to our noise map. You can see it does take us to a few public meetings, both our technical advisory committee meetings and a draft noise exposure map and comment period in late spring, early summer of next year, 2024. So we're diligently working with our consultants. HMMH as well as the Jones Paint Group are the consultants for this particular project. We have the grant, we have the projects, or the contracts, and we're just moving forward with kicking off our technical advisory committee, formatting that technical advisory committee with feedback from yourselves as well as the community, and then collecting lots and lots of data from air traffic control, Air National Guard, Army National Guard, Heritage Aviation, and your tenants, many different groups to make sure that we have the accurate information, data, type aircraft, etc., operationally into this map. So within around 9 months, we'll be looking at a new noise exposure map. That noise exposure map, of course, would then be the map. And really, we're looking at the 2029 map. That would be the map for eligibility for our sound insulation program or any of our noise compatibility programs. That's really it for noise, of course, unless there's questions. We have our noise exposure map update, we have our sound insulation program update, and both of those concurrently are happening right now.
And we're gonna have a public meeting next week that's gonna have some of this information. Well, you probably already got that on your list of topics. Oh, sorry.
But that's a good point, and then the more we say, the better. September 14th at 6:30 p.m. September 14th at the Chamberlain Elementary School. We're having a public meeting. Two purposes. One, to talk about the new multi-use recreational path, and one, to update the community on our noise compatibility programs, inclusive of noise map and sound insulation.
Related to noise exposure, a couple of meetings ago, maybe 4 or 5, I mentioned a story about traveling on 89, especially north, and how suddenly it was a sort of a overcast day. How this intense noise was right over the car, and I could just sort of see an accident perhaps happening as people were wondering if it was a truck passing or what in the world that sound was.
Yeah.
At that time, you mentioned that you were aware. I suggested that maybe Department of Transportation might be able to put up some signs, coordinate with the airport, let drivers know when planes are taking off, especially the large military planes. I know that nothing's been done on that, and I'm not calling you out in any sort of way on that, but I just don't want to lose that thought. I know that as we start to take care of these homes, which should be done first, then that there might be some ancillary issues that flow from noise that perhaps could occupy.
Excellent. That is a great point. We did request those signs both on 89 and on Patchen Road, Airport Parkway, circling over to Lime Kiln. So we'll follow up and request to see if there's additional action. We have not followed up.
Yes. All right, commissioners, any other discussion on this point? All right, hearing none, we will move on to the relocated item 9, commissioner items. So Bryn, do you want to take this one?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we had a little bit more space and time to discuss this. As you know, I'd asked earlier this summer about who would be on the committees, how people would be named to the committees, etc. I got some additional information from Nick and the team this past week, so thank you for passing that along. It looks like some updates have been made to the BTV Sound website, so again, thank you for making some updates to that. Earlier this summer, you mentioned 2 committees, so the Technical Advisory Committee, which is on the work plan that's shared in the packet. You'd also mentioned a regional advisory committee, but that's not named on the work plan packet. I'm curious if that is still intended to be convened.
It's a combination. So I misspoke and combined our different projects. For the regional and the technical advisory committees, we formed that as part of our master planning process, not as part of our noise program. For the noise program, we had our TAC committee, which is inclusive of our regional advisors. I mean, we can rename the committee if we need to. But it is an all-inclusive committee or meeting with both representatives of town and our technical folks, which I think is really important to make sure that the users and the flyers of the aircraft are also at these meetings, that we can start having an open dialogue on operational aspects that get entered into our noise map data. So it is just a single committee as part of the NEM process.
Okay, so for my clarification, the list you shared with us this past week, is that for the noise planning efforts?
Correct.
Okay.
It's specific to our noise exposure map, but that meeting is gonna be a very broad conversation about all noise projects.
Okay. Thanks. And we had, our mayor and city manager had asked about if there was any process to nominate additional folks to be considered for the technical advisory committee. And the mayor mentioned a couple other schools that we have, K through 12 schools. I see St. Mike's on your list and was also curious about CCV in Winooski as another consideration for potential nominees for that committee.
Absolutely. I believe we actually had CCV on our last meeting. So we're
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, we do have CCV on there. Yeah, sorry. Yes, we do have CCV on the committee, and the suggested members from the other school districts, we're gonna reach out to those as well. I think that's great. I think that makes a lot of sense. And as far as your first question, there is no official or formal process for nominations or adding. This truly is a public meeting. We'll be advertising these and posting these on the website. And these are also, as far as the committee and the conversation goes, we'll have we'll add folks for those that would like to be added based on some of these recommendations.
Okay, yeah, if there's it may already be on the BTV Sound website, but if there's a way to sign up for newsletters or notifications, that might be helpful to add for folks that want to get specific heads up for when meetings are. And speaking of that, I'm on the Burlington City Clerk portal and I don't see the September 14th public meeting posted there. Would it be posted somewhere else?
Yeah.
Next week's meeting, yes. So we advertised it in the other paper where we posted it on Front Porch Forum. It is on our city website. We're coordinating with South Burlington's community calendar websites, or at least a link to the airport one. Social media and paid sponsored advertising within the community. What else am I missing for advertising? We've done a pretty robust advertising over the last couple of weeks on this particular meeting.
Yeah, and maybe it's just maybe it isn't something that would normally be posted on the website along with the Burlington Electric Commission, the DRB.
Yeah, so those are boards and city council meetings and board meetings from the city council or airport commission meetings. Those aren't those informative public meetings.
Okay, all right, great. Thanks for clarifying that. I think I had one more question.
Can I just interrupt that point? Can that be something that is added to the spot on the website around the city website around the airport commission. Sort of to identify some other groups or meetings
On,
on the city of Burlington's website. That's what Bryn was talking about. She went, is that right? You went to the city of Burlington's website and couldn't find anything about this. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to post it with the airport commission, information so that, because that would be a logical place for people to go, I think,
yeah.
for some
Yeah, let
anyway.
me think about that because.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it, but.
Yeah, the civic clerk site or the board site is for those. Those are all of the meetings associated with public meeting law and. Required for advertising. I don't see why not. Yeah, let me think about that and work with the city to see if there's a way to do
I
something
think South Burlington did post it.
on the
somewhere.
meeting last for next week.
Well, maybe not, I haven't checked that, but I mean, in the past, when we had the pack, and
Gotcha.
I remember seeing it on our website somewhere.
Okay.
So maybe it's possible for Burlington to do that as well.
I don't see why not.
I mean, it's not a
think-
secret.
No, it's definitely not a secret.
And you want it to,
That's right.
to be well publicized.
That's right. Yeah, we can work with our IT director to figure out how we can logistically do that. Yeah, that's what's circling my mind is how do we do that?
Okay, I'm sorry, Brent, thank you.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know if you add, for some of your notifications, if you include our, communications director for the city of Winooski, but, he certainly would benefit from having a heads up of when, public engagement opportunities are so that we can cross post those through our channels as well.
Is that still Paul?
Paul, yes, yeah.
Great. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think those were kind of some of the main questions I had. I wanted to just have a little bit more time to have a sense for the work plan, the timing, the communications, leading up to various public meetings and hearings, what to expect on the website, things along those lines. So I appreciate adding this to the agenda today.
Thank you, Bryn. We now move on to the director's. Oh, go ahead.
One
Sorry.
other quick question that's related to the previous minutes and the presentation by Nick Claver. Just wondering because he mentioned or someone mentioned that city council will hear a presentation by him. I'm just wondering if that happened and how that was received or any sort of feedback.
That's my first item on my report.
I guess I just went right into that.
Eager to share with that.
All right, so let's move on to the director's report, so you don't have to wait much longer. Go ahead, Nick.
I'm just kidding, that's my second item.
Oh.
I have to make some introductions first. I'm super excited and incredibly happy that our reorganization process went through. Thank you all very much for your support. Of course, this was several months ago. Everything's coming together and we've hired many new people. We've promoted a few folks and we are introducing new folks to our airport team. I think I've already introduced both Stacy Leveley and Andrew Gettner. Stacy is not here right now, but she'll join us in future meetings. I'm sure both Andrew and Stacy report to Dave, really focus on safety, security, airfield equipment. Both Stacy and Andrew were internal candidates and promoted from within the airport. Stacy is the operations manager and Andrew, as I mentioned before, is our airfield manager. So congratulations to both of them. And if you want to say anything, you can go for it. And next up on the list is Mr. Jeff Bartley. Jeff has accepted a position as the Director of Innovation and Marketing. I'll let Jeff introduce himself, but I am so excited to get Jeff on site here. He officially has not started yet. He starts in 12 days, but very excited to get him on board. Again, that position was a brand new position as part of our reorganization, and is going to be very welcome as part of the leadership team. Jeff.
To Jeff Bartley, I'm coming from the Champlain Valley Fair, the 10 best days of summer, which ended 3 days ago, thankfully. But I'm excited for this opportunity. I know this is a high functioning, high performing team. And so I'm clamping at the bits to get moving on the 18th. I got one more event I got to see the expo through. But then so thank you.
Cool.
Appreciate the welcome.
And then some additional updates on the reorganization. We do have 3 positions now remaining essentially in our total reorganization. The Deputy Director of Aviation Administration is still ongoing. We're going through our search process for that position. And just last week, we posted our last 2 manager positions, which would report to this new Deputy Director of Aviation Administration. So that we're not going to have anybody by October, but hopefully we'll have some news in November and December timeframe to fill all of our positions.
So Nick, just on that, because I know that we were hoping to not post the manager positions until we had the deputy director in place. So does this indicate that that's taking longer to fill than?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the deputy director position, great candidates, and I have not ruled out any of the candidates that are going through the process today. However, I'd like to see a little bit more movement on the 2 manager positions, even prior to selecting or possibly reposting our deputy director position, and doing a larger search for more competition.
Okay. Thank you.
But yes, that was the original intention, was to hire a deputy director first, taking a little bit longer.
How broad was the search range?
For our manager positions, they're local. We do.
No, I meant the deputy.
Oh, deputy director position, we post on our industry website, so that's a national advertisement. And it's very geared towards, of course, the aviation airport industry. We're most likely going to be working with a larger firm, which does a little bit more advertising, promotion, and greater outreach. National. That was item number 1. Now item number 2. So updates on the presentation by Attorney Nick Clabbers from our last meeting on the regulation of aeronautical activities. We did put this in front of our Transportation, Utility, and Energy Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Burlington City Council. I had a very similar presentation that was shared with you. I shared that with them, had great feedback, had some community and public feedback as well, some good questions that were able to be answered during that particular meeting by Attorney Clabbers. He was able to present very similar. That conversation also ended with a motion on the presentation, and that motion was to accept the presentation and information and submit it to the full City Council of Burlington. And then, of course, at the discretion of the councilors, whether it would be on a consent agenda item or a deliberative conversational item. That's still to be determined on which meeting and which type of agenda it's going to be put on. Of course, at the purview of the City Council President. I thought it went really fantastic. I got, again, lots of interaction, both at a public forum and some back and forth with some community members on regulatory aspects, as well as, of course, the committee members, which are city councilors of Burlington. Both Councilor Gene Bergman and Councilor Mark Barlow were very interested in this conversation, and I am looking forward actually to reviewing that with the full city council if they so choose.
Thank you.
Next item on my list here is, Larry did have it in his, construction report. I did just want to report that Larry and I reviewed our future capital programming, with Marie. Marie's not able to join us today, but, with Marie, and we have Larry's already said it, we have an $80 million next year program. But we have a very robust, aggressive capital program specific with federal funding over the next 5 years. Next week, we are meeting with our FAA delegation from the Airport District Office of New England. And we're going to be reviewing and essentially approving these projects over the next 3 to 5 years. Of course, it just doesn't happen once a year. We have, oh my gosh, weekly, monthly, we're on the phone quite a bit with our FAA partners, so they're very aware of our capital program. This is the official, and it's a guidance that the FAA delivers every year. It has to go through this process and reviewed and approved essentially within this process, so that they can put this in the funding request with the total federal delegation and budget review. So that's happening next week. We're and very excited to move that forward.
Do we have one like FAA liaison or do we
Well, topic.
Yeah, so
topic specific?
Yeah,
essentially we do. So the FAA has an airport district office, and that's New England, which is directed by the director. His name is Luke Garrison. Amazing person and really strong relationship with the director. And then each sub department. So when we're talking about safety, for example, Dave has a liaison for our certification of our airfield and our inspections. If we're talking about planning projects, noise, or master planning, and Larry and I usually have that direct conversation with a planner, and that's their title. Same with construction. When we go off to a construction, then we have one single construction liaison. And they have, of course, many of them in office, but one is assigned to Burlington area.
So
and the environmental, which is the sound, residential sound.
That's a different unit.
And there's environmental.
And really great partnership. May I say better than ever? It's a really great partnership that we have. That's the reason we have such a strong, aggressive, passable capital program.
Great.
Quick update on Project Next, which is the north terminal replacement. We're over 30% design on that particular project. We have bid that project out as a construction manager at risk process, as we explained at a prior meeting. This allows us to hire a contractor very early in the process so that we can have that contractor and the design team working together to design this new building and hopefully look at every single angle appropriately, and save us costs and time in the long run. It's a highly complicated, many phased project, so we want to make sure we have the right folks and the right team and the right budget in place prior to moving this forward. Happy to report that we have gone through the request for qualifications process. Again, this isn't a full design and then bid and you select the lowest bidder process. This is, we design 30%, we bid out the qualifications for contractors based on the 30% design, and we went through an extremely independent and robust scoring process to select the contractor for this project. We did receive 5 bids on the project, and we selected one contractor to move forward based on the qualifications, the experience on similar projects, the pricing that they put forward, and that pricing, of course, isn't for the full project. It's for the time from today to a guaranteed maximum price. What is it going to cost us to fully design this project with our contractor in hand? And those bids came back from $0 all the way to close to $300,000.
They report on interview too, so.
And then we had a very intricate interview process with the finalists, the 3 finalists. Again, we had 5 original bids, narrowed down to 3, selected the contractor that's moving forward with us, which will be Engelberth Construction. They had an amazing team. They had a great presentation. All of them did. It was very, very difficult and like I said, independent scoring process. They bid $0, which is fantastic for the financial purpose of the airport, so that we can really design this with their help. They'll have their own architect team and engineers on this, up to a guaranteed maximum price. That's at about 80% of the design. We're gonna come forward to you over probably the next month, with a contract, so you see that with our engineering firm, and that'll get us to our guaranteed maximum price. That guaranteed maximum price is the price of the construction, so that'll be close to $35 to $40 million.
And that's guaranteed to Engelberth.
That's guaranteed to Engelberth.
That's why they'll
They'll be-
be it for 0?
Well, Engelberth,
That's right.
Engelberth will get hundreds of subcontractor proposals and bids for the subs for the work. I mean, like we did with the QTA, there were hundreds of people that bid on the portions of the QTA, different aspects of it. So this really helps. And construction manager at risk, this really puts the risk in construction manager risk, because they don't get anything if we don't.
There's no guarantee until we sign a guaranteed price with them, if the project moves forward, if the pricing doesn't get our button. So the risk right now is on the contractor to get us to what we need.
Looking for it.
And it was an extremely robust approval process with the FAA. This is one of the first projects in New England that I'm aware of that the FAA has approved. However, across the country, it is a very normal process for airports to start moving towards, so that the risk is on the contractor initially, and that there's limited change orders in the future because they're part of the design right off the bat.
And we're not opening a bid and finding out it's 10 million more than we have,
That's right.
or 5 million or 2 or whatever.
We're gonna
know
all
the
way
price when we go get the grant.
and have that highly competitive
Yeah.
process with subs all the
Yeah.
way through.
Yeah.
So making a lot of progress. We got a lot of work over the winter to do, both getting to a design, getting to permitting, and really getting ready for construction for next year.
We have a lot of permitting this winter.
So lots of permitting. We'll be in front of many South Burlington boards in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Quick shift to the North Terminal renovations projects. If you walked up this top floor hallway, I'm sure you saw. We have both of our automatic exit lanes in, one in the north, one downstairs in the south. They're working fantastically, much better than much better than I anticipated. New technology, so there's a little bit of holding our breath as we instituted this. But they're fantastic. Passengers love them. The flow of traffic and experience truly is much better. And the new area, especially in the north renovation area, is just totally and completely different. Larger space, more seating, all of our seating is now installed, and a much broader area for passengers to sit, eat, grab a cup of coffee, and just get a little bit of elbow room up on the north side. So we're weeks away from really finishing that project. We are looking to actually purchase two more automatic exit lanes so that we have that redundancy in there. FAA has initially approved some of this, so we're just working our way through some of the paperwork to see if we can actually do that as part of this grant. Not 100% sure yet, but we'll see. Otherwise, it's looking phenomenal. In my humble opinion, it looks really, really good. Same with the hotel. Just a quick update on the hotel. They in DEW Corporation, who is the hotel construction contractor, and Horgan is the hotel management company. They are finishing up their design of the Spring Hill Suites. That design does require some amendments in South Burlington's permitting process, so they'll be doing that over this fall and winter. And they are scheduled to start shovels in the ground April of 2024 for the new Spring Hill Suites BTV hotel.
Has that been announced publicly?
It has. Yeah. Yes. Because we did go through a couple of different versions of this over the last 6 years, yeah.
How many, that's
125, about 125 rooms. Yeah. 125 rooms. So really looking forward to that. Once we finish up some of the finishing drawings of this, we'll come back with a full presentation, both with DPW to share some of those updates in a more formal process. Looks great. Looks really great. Talk about the September 14th. That's next week. That is our public meeting on our community landscaping and recreational path, as well as updates to our noise programs. So it's a dual meeting, September 14th at 6:30 p.m. That's being held at the Chamberlain Elementary School. And we're really going to hold a town hall style meeting. We're going to be verbally talking about these projects. We have many poster boards to share with the community on new recreational path concepts. It's not a final design yet. So we want to hear from the community and the neighbors and those that are adjacent or anybody to this new investment. And we'll share those details in the pathway design. We've worked significantly with the city of South Burlington staff, both in planning. Paul Connor has been a huge help, all the way to Jesse Baker and of course the DPW team to make sure we're designing this in the appropriate way to hit curbs and other required necessities around the community, and to attach to existing public amenities like bike paths off of Kennedy Drive all the way over to existing natural resource areas. I'm really looking forward to that meeting. We've robustly advertised, as I said before, and we're hoping and expecting a great turnout and community feedback, both back and forth on both of those programs, our rec path as well as our noise concerns. Larry and I, straight after this meeting, we're going to be attending the South Burlington Natural Resource Board. This is related to the September 14th bike path meeting. We're going to be sharing those initial concepts with that board. I've met with the board 2 times already over the last 6 to 8 months, as well as some of the board members specifically, to make sure that we're hitting some of the highlights of what the board truly looks at, like natural species of plantings that are going out there, as well as where the bike path and preservation of existing trees and other areas. They've also been a very big help after this meeting. After this commission meeting, we'll be at the Natural Resources Board to present those details and answer any questions that they have.
Also, 4 years ago, we did go through the DRB process for a master plan, conceptual plan for this project. 4 years now, yeah.
The quick update on the Patrick Leahy Burlington International Airport branding changes. We're making very great progress and expecting a community event sometime in October, date to be determined. And we're still moving forward with our branding and our logo redesign and rename. So we have some great exciting news. Of course, I invite and we'll I've asked Tim to invite the commissioners if there are any questions or feedback initially. Happy to go through some of them. Again, we're planning a celebration sometime in October that we'll make sure that we invite you all to. And that is all I have for you tonight.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Robin.
Just out of curiosity, I didn't think about it before. Are we changing the 3-letter identifier for the airport?
That is not changing.
Thank you,
BTV.
God.
Will
I just was like, wow, the FAA implications of that. Okay, so nothing changes. So it does it. So when you do the branding, it's going to say Patrick Leahy and then Burlington International Airport, or
That's right. It'll formally have our official new name, the Patrick Leahy Burlington International Airport, also known as BTV.
okay, cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, Dave had one more thing, and this weekend, September 9th, so in 3 days, is an amazing, awesome, really great, exciting day for many reasons. But one of the reasons is because it is our 3-year required triennial emergency exercise. Every 3 years, we are required by the FAA to hold essentially an exercise to simulate an event like an aircraft incident that would require mutual aid response from all of our community members. This is a major event, and a huge kudos to Dave Carmen for supporting this and organizing this, working through this. And we're expecting 140, 150 people, plus all of our mutual aid responders from Essex to Williston to South Burlington, Colchester, Winooski, to at least bring a truck or two to support the exercise and simulate an event of this nature. We have actors that will be portraying portraying some of these things. And it is a surreal event, and an extremely serious exercise that all of us get to simulate, like I said, but also practice our roles if there are and is an emergency event, from a triaging situation all the way to communication, media relations, everything. It's family and friends responses. So airlines, TSA, the airport operations, Vermont Air National Guard is a major component of this event, as well, like I said, as all of our mutual aid responders.
Yep, ambulances, hospital,
Yeah, it's pretty
That's
cool.
part of the airport emergency plan, is part of that scale exercise.
Yeah, great. The hospital is part of this event, so we'll actually be transporting our actor passengers to the hospital so they can also simulate some mass injury, simulated exercise event. We'll be posting on social media. There might be some fake smoke and things like that to simulate the event. So we'll be posting and displaying signs so nobody's looking out the window or through the fence, because while we're not using an aircraft, there'll be school buses, which essentially is an aircraft without the wings. They'll be out on our airfield, but we want to make sure everybody knows this is just an exercise.
So you're not doing it during the day or evening when you actually have real flights taken?
Oh,
It's intertwined with that.
It'll be done
So-
all morning on Saturday, September 9th.
So the people coming to take their flights are notified of this?
Correct.
Yep, no impact to the travel.
Are they going to restrict any of the traffic, Nick? Are we closing runways? Are we?
We will be closing one of our runways for the morning, yes. The small runway will be closed.
And it's already notamed out and all that.
So,
I'm like the last one to know. Not unusual.
Yeah, it is not notified to air missions. That's what NOTAM stands for, is notice to air mission. It is not noted out right now only because many of the players, right, the people that are simulating being on the job when an event like this happens, Of course, they're not part of the planning process. We're simulating this event, so when our phone rings.
Oh,
and
right.
something happened,
Right.
that phone call will say there is an event at a particular location on the airfield. And you don't
So
want.
part, right. So
Yeah.
part of it is, it's done in real time and you can only have, it's evaluated, right? You guys get evaluated on your response, and you can't get a proper evaluation if everything is too scripted.
That's exactly right. This is highly evaluated. We've hired a consultant team we'll have, I think, 8 to 10 people from our consultant
They're
team.
flying in tomorrow.
Evaluating everything from the hospital response to our airport operations team, our maintenance response, our engineering response, repair, as well as airlines, and you name it, it's being very evaluated, and of course, we'll learn from it, and we'll make sure we implement any of the things that we learn and discuss into our airport emergency plan, which is a very robust and formal plan for responses. Yeah, that's all.
All right. Commissioners, anything else for Nick before we move on?
I was wondering if Brad Pitt was gonna play Nick.
I'm playing Brad.
Oh, okay.
Close. Not even close. That would be fun to get a real actor.
All right, we'll move on to item 10, which is follow-up items. So 10.1 is the queue permits for taxi.
I do have an update for you on this particular one, however, no action on it tonight. So the update is, I was going to get you additional information on the airport commission's role and legal authority to make changes to our taxi driver queuing permits that we sell. The city of Burlington regulates all vehicles for hire, so there's an inspection process and a licensing process that goes through the city of Burlington. However, the airport has a separate segment of permits that we sell. Right now, I think we're around 45 to 47. I don't know if Anna or Jillian, you know the exact number. Somewhere in that range, yeah. That we currently sell. That number was authorized by the airport commission, and our legal team has been able to research this, which goes back decades. But this is the authority and only the authority of the airport commission to make the determination on the number of taxi queue permits sold at this airport. I would like your discussion, but I'd also like city council's feedback and the mayor's feedback on shifting that a little bit. That was essentially made back in the 90s, even in the 80s, but most recently in the 90s, based on traffic flow and all of these other circumstances to allow quantity of drivers to come through this airport. However, for now, because that is going to take much longer, for now, at the next meeting in October, I will add this as an action item to recommend increasing the number of queue permits sold at this airport. In my research, both working with the Vehicle for Hire Board, working directly with taxi driver owners and operators, as well as some of the representatives of the Vehicle for Hire and taxi community that are on the board, and see these interactions every day. It is very clear that the set number that we sell today is far too low. We need additional permits out there. We do have an issue with specifically between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning when our late flights are coming in. There's not a lot of incentive for some of these drivers to come out here. even though it's extremely busy, we can have 1,000 passengers coming off those planes during those couple of hours. However, the permitting is, the quantity of permits is absolutely needed to increase the availability. The waiting list right now is over 50 taxi drivers are do not have a permit to operate at this airport and want to.
And that doesn't include Uber or
That does not include Uber, but Uber and Lyft
Yeah.
are regulated under a different program called the Transportation Network Company Program. We have a separate contract with TNC Networks, and they are also charged separately, which is at this airport $2 per pickup and drop off. In downtown Burlington is a little bit different costs. Eventually and over time, as we work on construction and improvements to our front entrance, I would like to see an automatic system. So instead of queue permits sold, we would sell a device to go into a vehicle, which would raise and lower a gate to access queue in the queuing line out there. So we can control that and control the revenue associated with that as well, pretty much based on a pickup and drop off.
Does it cost a queue permit?
Just over $500 a year.
And they unlimited, so.
Whereas, like I said, Uber and Lyft are being charged $2 per pickup and drop off, which immediately goes on to the cost to the passenger.
All right, Chip.
Nick, thank you for that. Just as a heads up, as you're preparing to present this next time, I had the privilege or the burden of being on the council as we wrote Uber regs. And if you can provide us with some data, not just about the demand side of why, what the queue is, but a better understanding of how Uber and Lyft fit with that, because they're separate. And I'm not convinced that and I also recall the taxi drivers being, it was a privilege. I'm just not sure going ahead and issuing what the impact will be. So having the Uber data, not just the taxi data, I think will be helpful to this board in coming up with a recommendation.
Excellent. I can do that.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, anything else on this topic?
Okay, I really like the sound of the idea of having the people with the permit have some sort of pass to sort of raise the gate. Because I'm just thinking, I'm probably wrong with this, that any person could get in that line and just pick someone up.
Theoretically, yes, absolutely. There's no controls, physical barrier controls that would say otherwise. However, our ambassador team constantly monitors that. So they have to check in with the ambassadors and fit into the queue line. And we have our ambassadors out there throughout our operational time periods, including midnight and 9 a.m. in the morning. But it can also be very busy, and the ambassadors have other roles out there, both from a security and a passenger experience perspective. Yes, something could happen for sure, where an unpermitted driver could come in there.
Well, I feel better now that the ambassador is out there, especially late at night and things like that.
Yes. Yeah, they do a really good job. They also log some of this information, not every single driver, but they log some of this information. We do have different tiers of classification. So we have a queue permit, we also have a contract permit. For example, hotel shuttle buses or shuttle vans, which is another conversation we'll probably end up having, especially as our new hotel comes online. Right now, we charge around $125 per year for a hotel to make free pickups and drop-offs. That's a little bit concerning to me. So there's other avenues that we can set these access control methods into that queuing lane.
Concerning in what way? We're not charging enough?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it seems
So
that the other guys are being charged $500.
well, from those perspectives, right, the hotel shuttle is. I mean, I guess for no hotel room, right, you're making the revenue to pay for that. Similar to a taxi driver to pay for your queue permit. But what we're not seeing is the parking revenue. So when and there's lots of advertising that's around the community where you can spend a night in a hotel and park
Yeah,
for
parking
free for
flat.
12 days or 7 days. And then get dropped off for free at the airport. So just some control methods to make sure that we collect the appropriate data to share with you and others. Which is that active control system.
Nick, are the taxi drivers required to just use the meter, or can they just charge whatever they want?
No, there's a very set rules of costs, maximum costs, airport costs associated with that. They have to use the meter. There's very regulated rules by the city of Burlington that they have to perform. There's also a what's the word I'm thinking of? A method to report any misuse or perceived misuse of those rules to the vehicle for hire board, and there's hearings and everything associated with allegations on misuse of some of the taxi regulations.
Interesting. I've had some very different fares charged from those taxi drivers. So I was very curious about that. Thanks.
Right, commissioners, anything else on item 10.1? All right, and then before we conclude this, commissioners, is there anything that we've talked about today that you would like to have added to this discussion, added to this section for next month, so that we remember to circle back to it? Is there anything that came up that piqued your interest today? All right, so hearing none, we will close down follow-up items. So next up is a proposed executive session. So I would entertain a motion to move into executive session to discuss lease negotiations with the Burlington School District where premature disclosure might place the city and the airport at a disadvantage.
Are those recommended motions on there?
No.
There's 2 motions.
Oh,
Yeah.
they weren't in the packet when I looked at it, they weren't there, but I kind of winged that one.
Okay.
But if you have something you'd like me to read instead. All right, so I'm making the 2 motions concurrently?
No.
You have to
So
do
making
it.
one motion and then a second. Okay, just want to make sure. So I would entertain a motion that I would like to move that we have an executive, this isn't. We should enter into an executive session to hear information concerning contract negotiations regarding the Burlington School District, which would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage if made part of general public knowledge.
That's from our attorney's office.
Okay, let's move by Helen. Is there a second?
Second.
So we move into,
No, and then you do a further one that says who can be here, right?
Then you all.
No, the next movement, sorry, it's a 2-phase, Helen's right. The next phase is based on those findings. There's a motion to go into executive session and noting for the record who from airport staff will be included in that conversation.
okay. So there we
You
go.
only had the first and second.
Yeah,
Right, so
we just
you need to
done
vote
that.
on the first motion. So all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the second motion, based upon that finding, I'd entertain a motion that the commission go into executive session to receive confidential updates on those contract negotiations regarding the Burlington School District.
And don't you include the people?
And
And invite-
it would include who is gonna be at that
Okay.
meeting, which would be just airport staff,
Okay, so commissioners and the airport staff.
which would be Larry, Hannah, Andrew, Jillian, Dave, and myself.
Okay,
But David isn't here, right? Or did you move back?
He'll be right
Oh,
back.
okay. Okay, I will move that.
okay, thank you, Helen.
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any discussion? All those, go ahead, Rick.
We'll vote for some.
And
Okay,
then are these guys gonna?
That was
on a
my
different,
question. I mean, what happens with
Zoom?
people, including there's town meeting TV on there too.
right, so we've traditionally done a separate. I don't know if we.
What's that? Can we just shut off the mic?
No, because we have commissioners online.
Yeah. We used to have a separate Zoom session, I don't know.
So
He's actually, he's in the chat saying he's stepping out.